Now, Alex, we'll stay in touch with you. Alex Newman was an eyewitness, saw what was going on at one of the food courts, and he saw someone running, and obviously mayhem was the word he used. Tom Fuentes is still with us, the former assistant FBI director, our CNN law enforcement analyst. Are you surprised, Tom, that this is still going on as intensively as it is, approaching 1 hour into this incident?
Well, I would question whether or not this may have already ended, and the reason I say that is watching the video feed of the area around the terminal. They're bringing passengers out, putting them on buses, and they seem to be fairly nonchalant about it. If they thought they still had someone running around that airport that has a high-power rifle or explosives, there would be much greater urgency on the part of the law enforcement authorities to get those people out of there, make them run to that bus, get those buses out of there. And it's kind of, you know, you have people looking like they're going on a vacation excursion here, boarding the LAX buses. So there's a good possibility that this is already over on the inside of that terminal, and they've just not said so publicly. The police may be aware of it, but the public and the media may not be aware of it yet. I'm just, again, it's my opinion, looking at what appears to me to be a lack of urgency evacuating passengers from the vicinity of that terminal.
Well, why wouldn't, just a technical question, why wouldn't police, if it's all over, why wouldn't they immediately do a quick announcement, it's all over, and we're going to clean up this situation right now? Why wouldn't they immediately tell us if it's all over?
Well, they may be trying to dial down the speed of evacuation to avoid further injury to people just tripping over each other or getting run over by a bus or rescue vehicle like we've had at other incidents. So that could be a circumstance. But for the public announcement, they just want to be absolutely certain that if they had a lone gunman, that lone gunman has either been killed or apprehended and neutralized one way or the other, and that to their knowledge there's no additional threats at large in that airport. And again, we've seen this in other incidents. The person in the Navy Yard was alone and on the ground, dead for a pretty long time before the police finally came out and said that that situation was over and handled and the public would be safe. And of course, they did have to track down whether ununiformed officers were actually suspects. But you know, in this case, it just doesn't seem anymore like there's a mad dash to get away from that terminal.
Hold on a minute, Tom. Deborah Farrick is joining us. She's getting some information on what's happening at LAX. What are you learning, Deb?
Well, we can tell you some preliminary information. We're being told by an intel source, formerly of the LAPD, that the shooter apparently approached a checkpoint there at Terminal 3 in LAX and then opened fire on a TSA agent. Now, we're told also that there were multiple shots that were fired. The weapon they believe may be a rifle, but again, this was somebody who walked up to the checkpoint, opened fire on a TSA agent. Not clear right now, according to the people that we're talking about, as to whether they actually breached that security checkpoint or whether the target was there. So all of that right now under investigation. You heard Mike Brooks earlier describing that sort of on-site triage center there. They do that just in the expectation that there might be numerous casualties, but you also see that there are a number of ambulances that are on scene that are still there. So whether this was somebody going after one person, all of that right now under investigation. But they believe right now there's one shooter, but clearly they're going through all the terminals to see whether in fact there might be anybody else who was involved in this shooting. And well, Terminal 3, which is where it took place, is connected to other terminals. Terminal 2 by sort of a breezeway, a jetway. So this is a rather large scene right now that they're looking at. Wolf?
And clearly this is still an ongoing situation. It looks hopefully it's over with, but we have certainly there's been no formal announcements or any announcement by local authorities that it may be resolved. Let's hope it is resolved, but we do know that LA Fire Department is saying there's multiple injuries, multiple patients that were injured in this incident in Terminal 3 at LAX. Tom Fuentes is still with us. Mike Brooks is with us. Deborah Farrick. Our own Casey Wyan is on the way. We've got our affiliates monitoring what's going on. Still an ongoing situation as we speak right now. LAX has been shut down. It's clearly closed. No flights are taking off or landing right now. The FAA has issued that announcement. a little while ago, and that is going to cause some major flight disruptions coming out of Los Angeles. Clearly, Mike Brooks, as you watch what's going on, does it look like these folks are calmed down, or we're only getting little snippets from the video, so we only see what's happening outside. Really, we don't know what's going on inside Terminal 3.
No, we don't, and you don't see a lot of immediacy like Tom was saying, but you do see the law enforcement command post set up there earlier on in the situation. I saw some FBI agents arriving, but there is an FBI office. There's agents assigned to LAX. They're there and have an office there at the airport. But you do still see the LA Fire with their triage area set up, with a number of medic units lined up there. We don't know if that's possibly out of an abundance of caution. We don't know if they have this person contained in custody. We don't know any of this right now, Wolf, but one of the other things they're also doing, they're going over all the video surveillance to see, okay, if this was a single gunman, if it was someone who may have had some assistance, where they went. They're looking at all the video surveillance because you have hundreds of cameras inside of that airport that they're able to bring up and take a look at the movements of this shooter as he possibly parked at the airport, as he entered the airport, and possibly approached that TSA checkpoint.
And if it occurred, Tom Fuentes, inside the secure area, inside the metal detectors that the TSA obviously conduct at all airports in the United States, if someone had a weapon inside that area, that raises a lot of concerns, Tom.
Well, the concern there is, and possibly here, the shooting occurred at the checkpoint, not past the checkpoint, meaning there was no breach of a checkpoint with a person with a rifle and then turning around and opening fire. So if they're in the unsecure area, people getting out of cars coming to catch flights, they can get out of those vehicles with a bazooka. They're not going through any security yet until they get to the gate checkpoint. Now, as Mike mentioned, and it's a tremendous point, the cameras that they'll be going through now will cover everything from the vehicles unloading people at the front doors, the sidewalks, the entries, the gate areas, the hallway areas leading to the security checkpoints. They'll be going through that now in detail, trying to see if there's more than one person that walked in there. When do they see the weapon? Are there other multiple people that maybe were with that person and somehow has disappeared into the airport? All of that is under review and analysis right now, and has been since the initial incident, wanting to know, is this person alone, or was this person alone when the attempt was made?
And they'll be reviewing all those videotapes very, very closely. I assume they've probably already started. Casey Wine, I take it you're now at LAX, is that right?
That's right, Wolf. I'm just outside the gates of LAX. For those who are familiar with the airport, I am at the intersection of Tacoma Boulevard and where Lincoln turns into the airport, just north of the airport. You can hear the sirens behind me. What that is, believe it or not, is the bomb squad and an LAPD vehicle actually stuck in traffic. They're trying to get to the airport, but because the traffic is so bad, they can't get past all of the cars that look like they're backed up for maybe a mile around the airport. An LAPD officer has now gotten out of his vehicle, instructing other vehicles to move out of the way so they can get bomb squad trucks into LAX. It's really a chaotic situation around the perimeter of LAX right now. Traffic blocked for miles on some of these roads. One other interesting thing, though we have reported and we have confirmed that there is a ground stop in effect at LAX just over the last 2 or 3 minutes. I've seen a couple different commercial flights either landing or taking off. So we're not sure which planes are being allowed to leave, which planes are being allowed to come in, but some flights are actually coming and going out of LAX, so it's really not as many as normal. It looks like that bomb squad has had some success in at least moving forward a few hundred yards as they make their way toward LAX. So, if the bomb squad can't get in, I don't know how the rest of us are gonna get any closer than we are, Wolf.
An airport spokeswoman just said outgoing flights have been halted at LAX right now. I assume a ground stop means incoming flights as well, but we'll get some clarification on that. Let me, for viewers who are just tuning in at the bottom of the hour right now, update you on what we know. Around 9:30 a.m., Pacific time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, parts of the Los Angeles International Airport began to be evacuated after reports of gunfire, shots being fired, according to local police. Airport officials said the incident was at Terminal 3 at LAX. And passengers said there was a lot of popping sound. Everybody was diving for cover. Hundreds of people started running down staircases. According to one eyewitness, everybody started to panic. Passengers were directed to board buses and were taken to smaller terminals nearby or taken outside. So there's a lot of activity going on right now. More information is coming in even as we speak. The former LAPD ranking officer is telling us that the shooter approached the checkpoint and shot a TSA agent. Multiple shots were fired in quick succession. Rifle was used. Not clear whether the shooter breached the security checkpoint. Deborah Farrick is reporting this. So quickly, Tom Fuentes, to you, what does that sound like if this is true, that the shooter approached the checkpoint and shot a TSA agent?
Well, it sounds, Wolf, like the shooter didn't get in and the shooter did not breach security. And that's the danger that security officers at any public building or airport facility manning the checkpoints, it's the point of danger. People up to that checkpoint can walk right up carrying a weapon. They haven't gone through any screening yet, and that's where they get screened. We had a similar situation a while back where two Capitol police officers at the checkpoint were shot. We had the Holocaust Museum incident where the checkpoint officers were shot. So this is, the officers that run those checkpoints are at the point of attack. If someone is trying to breach the airport security, they are the first line of defense.
And you don't really, Mike Brooks, you don't really realize how dangerous potentially it is for those TSA officers who deal with security at airports around the country.
No, you don't. And, you see the ones there, the officers in the blue shirts, most of them are unarmed. You have law enforcement that is usually on the other side in the secure area that will assist them should they need some help. But those officers from TSA, they, don't have weapons. So, yeah, very, very vulnerable. And Tom's absolutely right. I was part of the team that actually responded to the Capitol when those two officers, Officer Chestnut and Officer Gibson, were killed, by an armed gunman as he entered the Capitol building itself. So absolutely, those officers manning those checkpoints, extremely vulnerable, Wolf.
And so why aren't they armed?
Well, the TSA, I think their main mission is operating the checkpoints, looking for the screening of passengers, and you have law enforcement. In this particular case, you've got the airport police there at LAX that are behind them, usually in the secure area. But I'm sure that's something, again, after incidents like this, that they will review and maybe change the policy and have more additional armed officers on the other side of the checkpoint. So I'm sure, when we have incidents like this, Wolf, law enforcement takes a close look. Okay, what can we do to be more proactive than reactive to situations like this, active shooters and such?
Let me bring Deborah Farrick. If Deborah Farrick is still with us, she's getting good information on what's going on over there. Deborah, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
All right, I want you to update our viewers on precisely what you're learning. Go ahead.
Okay, so these are the details that we are learning. Apparently, a shooter entered the Terminal 3, approached a security checkpoint, and then shot a TSA security agent. It's not
your last name correctly, Chuck. You were there in Terminal 3 near the food court. What did you see? What was your impression?
Well, I was actually at Gate 30, just walking towards the food court. I mean, I think Gate 30 is the closest to where the security checkpoint is. And suddenly I heard a couple of popping noises, and I just turned to look. It just sounded like somebody banging on something, but there was a stampede of people coming my way, and I realized that something was very wrong. And people were panicking just seeing the stampede of people that started to run. So people were running into the bathrooms. People were screaming, run into the bathroom, get behind something. And actually, I was very close to the escalator that goes down to the walkway to the baggage claim area, so I decided to just head down the escalator, picked up my carry-on bags, ran down this long corridor, and then at the end of the corridor, where we would have had to go out through security, the security guard didn't know anything that was going on at that point, and she just kept saying, if you go out, you can't come back in. But then all of a sudden the police came and set everybody down on the floor, so everyone immediately went down to the floor, and police ran the other way down the corridor. And a few moments later, the police asked us to get up and run, get out. So we ran across, everyone ran different ways, but I ran to the parking structure across the street, got into one of the stairwells where I figured I was surrounded by concrete. And eventually the police came and escorted us all to the international terminal where the bulk of the people are, as far as I can tell right now.
Well, are you waiting to take off to go someplace, or had you just landed?
Yeah, I was headed back to New York, and I'm coming back here on Monday, but I was heading back to New York. I had an 11 o'clock flight, plenty of time to wait, and, well, I may just stay here the weekend.
Yeah, obviously, looks like there's a ground stop, at least for now, and no flights are taking off. I suspect only a few are landing right now until they clean up and resolve this entire incident. They haven't told us it's all over. Local authorities were waiting for some sort of announcement. Were most people relatively calm, Chuck, or were they pretty panicky?
At the beginning, it was a complete panic. People were screaming. I saw children crying. People here are still very shaky, especially people who are close by. We ran top speed carrying our luggage. I guess it might have been more prudent to leave our luggage where it was, I suppose. But just you had what was in your hands and you just ran.
And so right now you're in Terminal 2. You've gone through the metal detectors, the TSA checkpoints, and you feel safe and secure inside there, right?
Actually, we didn't go through any checkpoints. We're actually standing just inside the entrance to the terminal. I guess, there's a bistro here, and I'm not even sure what part of the terminal this is. In fact, this looks like this might be the exit to the terminal. Wasn't really paying attention, but we're all just sitting here centrally. They're trying to keep us away from the windows. You see armed police everywhere. As we were coming to the terminal, they were stopping cars and making people get out, being very, very stern with people. Show us your hands. Don't go back into the car. And I see, handguns and, more impressive-looking weapons. But the police are obviously taking this very, very serious. We feel pretty safe where we are right now because there's such a police presence, and they seem to be much more relaxed around here than they were initially.
So does it look, do you get the impression, Chuck, that it's over with right now, or that it's still an ongoing incident?
It feels less like an ongoing incident than it did before, because before the police, you'd see police just running around, going through the parking structure across the street, looking up and down, scanning, the roadway that's above here. Now I don't really see them actively looking around here anymore.
All right, so stand by. Chuck, thank you so much, Chuck Ocherette, an eyewitness to what was going on, giving us a very good insight into clearly a very dangerous situation. A shooter apparently opening fire at a checkpoint at Terminal 3 at LAX. Mike Brooks, when you hear what Chuck was describing, what did you think?
No, that's it sounds like, right there at the checkpoint, and it sounded like most of the passengers there were very, very cool, calm, collected, did exactly what law enforcement told them to do. And and when you have a situation like this, Wolf, in the early stages, you don't know if that gunman is acting alone. That's the reason the officers take those precautions of having everybody show their hands, of having people get down to the ground initially, because you don't know exactly what you have. But now what law enforcement is going to be dealing with, and I'm sure that the Terminal 3 will be closed for some time, Wolf, is because you now have an active crime scene. If in fact they do have this lone gunman in custody, they're going to have to deal with that checkpoint as a crime scene for quite some time. So there's a good possibility Terminal 3 could be shut down for the foreseeable future.
It looks, Mike, like planes are now taxiing on runways, and I think some of them are actually taking off, which would be a very good sign if, in fact, that is the case, right?
Absolutely, yeah, because, you know, right when something like that happens, all operations, the airport operations, they will go ahead and stop. We heard the FAA, there was a ground stop, but it looks like now that maybe they're taxiing, start lining the planes up again. But I seriously doubt any flights that were scheduled to take off, this afternoon from Terminal 3. Passengers most likely will not be able to get there. So right now, airport operations, they're trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do with all the flights that they had scheduled out of Terminal 3. Because as long as that security checkpoint for 3 is shut down, they're not going to be able to operate any flights out of that terminal.
All right, hold on a minute. Casey Wine is at the airport getting more information for us. What are you learning, Casey?
Wolf, I don't know if you're hearing me all right, Wolf?
Yeah, I hear you fine. You look good. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Well, you can see some of the traffic that has backed up here approaching LAX, and you can see there are fire engines trying to get into the airport. They've got to have probably 3/4 of a mile or so to go before they reach that airport. They're not able to get through because of the traffic. There you can see a guy who's outside of his car. Just a few minutes ago, we talked to you on the phone. We had a bomb squad trying to get through this traffic, and they couldn't do it. So maybe the incident has sort of calmed down, as you were reporting earlier, inside, but outside of LAX, it's still an absolute nightmare, an absolute mob scene. What I can say is, despite the fact that we have had that ground stop, just over the last 4 or 5 minutes or so, I have seen, I think, 3 or 4 different commercial flights actually landing on the runway that's just behind our camera shot, or just in front of our camera shot, I should say. We've also seen a couple flights on the other side of the terminal taking off. So there are a limited number of flights that are operating in and out of LAX, but obviously much, much fewer than normal because of this absolute gridlock that you're seeing around the airport that's going to take hours and hours, I'm sure, to unwind, Wolf.
Do you know offhand, off the top of your head, Casey, you fly out of LAX a lot, which airlines usually use Terminal 3?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe Virgin Atlantic or Virgin America was operating out of there at one point. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. It's not a terminal that is used by any of the major.
Actually, Casey, hold on a second, because now we're putting up on the screen AirTran, Alaska Airlines, Horizon Air, JetBlue, Midwest, Spirit, and Virgin America. Those are the major airlines that use Terminal 3, so we're on top of that.
And I've got to say, one of the, Wolf, if I could, one of the flights that I just saw land maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago was an Alaska Airlines flight. Flew right over our head here and landed on that runway just behind us. So at least some of the flights are still operating.
So it's not complete ground halt. Some planes are landing, and maybe some planes will start taking off. We see some planes on the runway right now. Looks like they're getting ready to taxi and take off, which would be an excellent sign.
There's a plane coming in right over us, Wolf. That's ANA. I'm not sure if that's one of the ones that's in Terminal 3 or Terminal 2. Probably maybe to the Bradley International Terminal, which perhaps is not affected by this. It's in a separate building.
Yeah. You know, Mike Brooks, one thing that just dawned on me, and you know a lot more about this than I do, if it's an isolated incident, one shooter, that's one thing, but if there were accomplices, you don't necessarily want to see planes leaving that were scheduled to leave from Terminal 2, because somebody could be on board one of those planes, right?
There's always that possibility, Wolf, and that's why it's important to find out who this person is, and I'm sure that they do already know who this person is, how that person got there, because you heard Casey saying that the bomb squad truck was coming in just a short time ago, because out of an abundance of caution, if this person came by vehicle, they'll try to find out where this person parked, and that's why the surveillance video comes so much into play as part of the initial investigation, Wolf, because you want to make sure that this was just one person and was acting alone and didn't have some accomplices with them. So that's why it's all important to put together the timeline, how the person got there, what the exact movements of this gunman were when he arrived to the airport, when he approached the airport, when he parked, if he brought a vehicle, all these things, and then also going out to try to where this person lives, getting a search warrant, going out there to make sure that there is no hazardous materials, anything else in this person's house. You know, where did this person come from? This is all part of the initial investigation. Once they identify this person, we see right from our KTLA, a fire department helicopter, a Los Angeles Fire Department helicopter approaching the scene also. So a lot of things still going on, Wolf, and we still see the triage area set up out in front with LA Fire Department. They have not broken that down. We see the police command post right here, that was very active just a short time ago, still set up. One of the mobile command vehicles also was approaching the scene just moments ago as we see this LA Fire Department helicopter land on the top of one of the, looks like one of the heliports there.
Yeah, at the airport. We are now being told, Mike, by CNN's Miguel Marquez, that a law enforcement source close to the investigation says a suspect has been shot and is now in police custody. So that's very, very reassuring news. And so obviously that would be very, very important if it's an individual, one person involved in this incident and the person has been shot and is in police custody. That would be excellent news. Hold on for a moment, Mike. Casey, we've got another eyewitness. Leah Osborne is joining us on the phone. Leah, where were you when all this happened?
I was in Terminal 3. So I was just sitting in the chairs when just a swarm of people started running as we started evacuating towards the stairs. And then we were hurried down the stairs, and just as we were exiting, all of a sudden they told us to get down. And we were down for, I don't know, maybe like 25 seconds, I would say, when we heard the shots coming from behind us. And then everybody started running out the exit towards the parking structure.
And you were getting ready to board a flight for Newark, New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And where are you now?
We're in the international terminal, so I think it's Terminal 4.
Yeah. And they took you, because there's another Terminal 2. A lot of folks from Terminal 3 went to Terminal 2. So you're just holding right now. You're just waiting to see what's going on before they let you go back.
Yeah, we're waiting. They're not letting anybody in or out. So
and no one from Virgin America, which was your airliner, has given you any information on when your flight might be taking off, right?
No information on that.
So you're just going to have to wait. I assume you're still going to try to get to... all right, hold on for a moment, Leah, because Jay Carney, the White House press secretary, is now speaking about this incident at LAX.
The Los Angeles International Airport by Alyssa Mastromonaco, his deputy chief of staff, and he will be regularly updated on unfolding events there. At this point, the lead is LAPD, but we're obviously at the federal level in touch with law enforcement officials on the ground, and the president will be updated as the afternoon progresses.
And at this point, anything you can say about what he's been told, what the understanding is from officials on what's happened there?
No, I have no more information than what I think you're learning from reports out of LA right now to convey.
On a separate topic, intelligence officials say that the leader of the Pakistani Taliban was killed in a U.S. drone strike on Friday. Can you confirm that he was killed? All
right, so there you hear that the president has been informed about what's going on. Lisa Monica, his Homeland Security advisor, is briefing the president. They did not provide specific information on what's going on. I want to bring back Leah Osborne, one of the eyewitnesses we've been talking to. So Leah, so you were there, you were sitting in one of the chairs near your gate, getting ready to board Virgin America, a Virgin American flight from LAX to Newark, New Jersey, and then did you actually hear the popping sounds of guns? I think we may have lost Leah Osborne, but but I suspect she did hear those sounds. Mike Brooks is watching what's going on together with all of us. You see the intensity at the airport. You see a lot of emergency vehicles there. It's very difficult, according to our own Casey Wyant, to get anywhere near the airport right now on a Friday. A lot of folks trying to get out of Los Angeles for the weekend. Their plans are going to be delayed, clearly, as a result of what happened. But Mike, set the scene for us. A shooter arrives at a checkpoint over there, a TSA checkpoint going in, and has a weapon and starts firing. This is what we're hearing. And people are injured. Multiple people are injured. We don't know how many, but we are told that the shooter was shot himself or herself and is now in police custody. So that would be good news if, in fact, the shooter is in police custody.
It would, Wolf. That would be very, very good news, and that begins the investigation on trying to find out what the motive for this was. You know, did this person, did the shooter, did this possibly know this particular TSA agent? Was it a random act? Who is this person? What's their affiliation? These are all questions that law enforcement want to know right now. But you know, Wolf, I still find it interesting. We haven't seen the triage area broken down at all, so maybe just out of an abundance of caution before they go ahead and clear all the terminals and open some of the traffic back up. Casey Wyant said there's some planes that are landing. We've seen some action, planes moving around the taxiways, but they still have not broken down this triage area, and I've counted 5 or 6 medic units, ambulances that are still there, and the fire department command post right there. We see a battalion chief's vehicle, probably an EMS supervisor still there, as well as on the left we see the law enforcement command post with the mobile command vehicle that's there now, and a lot of activity there because there's a lot of work to do, Wolf, on the law enforcement side of things with this investigation. We saw two FBI agents, looked like one of them possibly with the evidence response team, walking into the airport. I saw them there early on because if in fact it was the TSA agent we're hearing who was wounded, it will be, that is a federal offense also, assault on a federal officer, and that will fall under the jurisdiction of the FBI, but also assisted with the LAPD, the LA Airport Police, will all work on this together, and and depending on what condition that wounded person, the wounded subjects are, what kind of condition they're in, if a death has occurred, a lot of different things come into play with the investigation, but it'll be worked jointly, I'm sure, with LAPD and the FBI.
Stand by for a moment, Mike. Casey Wyant, our reporter, is there getting some more information. What else are you learning, Casey?
Well, Wolf, I don't know if you can see this woman way off in the distance down there wheeling her luggage. She just passed by us. She's an arriving passenger from JFK, just came into one of the other terminals today. She's got a 4-mile walk, she says, to her house in Marina del Rey, but there's no taxi cabs, no way for her to get off of the airport, no way for her husband to come and get her and get close to the airport, so she's going to walk as far as she can until she meets up with her husband. Now you can see also the traffic jam, and you've got an LAPD vehicle that's trying to navigate his way through this incredible traffic jam. There's also a SUV coming up behind him with his lights flashing. Shows you the difficulty that emergency responders are having trying to get to the airport because how the traffic is just gridlocked. We talked earlier about the bomb squad truck that tried to get by here and they couldn't arrive. What we have seen, though, is an increasing number of takeoffs and landing. We know still officially that the airport says there's a ground stop, but over the past 20 minutes or so, we've seen several flights, commercial flights, taking off and landing from the airport, although it is quiet right now, Wolf.
All right, stand by for a moment. Tori Bellici is joining us on the phone right now, another eyewitness. What did you see, Tori?
Well, I was in the terminal when the shooting took place. I was just waiting. I was actually, we've been delayed. We had a flight at 8 o'clock, and we got delayed till like 10:30, and then all of a sudden I heard shots, but it didn't really register until everybody started like flying down the hallway, and they were just like jumping over chairs, jumping over people, hiding, and we were kind of trapped at the end of the terminal. Now, I never saw the shooter, but we heard the shots, and then we were kind of trapped at the end of the terminal, and which it seemed like an eternity, but finally the security came, opened up the door, and we all piled out onto the tarmac and just kind of hid underneath the plane.
And we're showing our viewers a photo you took and posted on Twitter, Tori. It looked like a pretty panicky situation.
It is probably the worst experience I've ever been in my life. I mean, it was the most terrifying. And you always like kind of, imagine what would you do. You hear about these horrible incidences, and you got to kind of ask yourself, what would I do in a situation like that? And the only thing I could do was just like keep my eyes down the hallway to make sure he wasn't coming down and just try to keep calm. But I mean, everybody was just going crazy. It was probably the most terrifying experience I've ever been through.
You heard gunshots. Did you actually see the shooter?
I never saw the shooter. We heard the shots, and that's, because like I said, I kind of sitting, waiting at my gate, heard the shots, and then looked up, and then everybody was flying down the hallway, just trying to get out.
And so did they evacuate you to another terminal? Is that where you are right now?
So then what we did is we were standing on the tarmac for a bit, and then about, I don't know, maybe about 10 minutes passed, and everybody, the security brought around shuttle buses. And so now they've just been shuttling everybody out of the terminal into a secure location. And it's just, everybody is here right now. It's getting packed.
Tori, do you get the impression that this incident is over? Because we are being told that the shooter has been shot himself and is in police custody.
Yeah, I've heard news that they did apprehend him, but I think we just got an update. Somebody came in from security and said, right as of now, they're just going to hold us here until they make sure that the entire area is secured. And at some point, maybe we might be able to get back to get our stuff, but who knows?
You left your stuff over there at Terminal 3? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
So you just left your bags and you started running with
it's
a lot of other people.
It's like the only thing that was going through my head was get out.
All right, well, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad everyone else is okay. There are multiple injuries. We don't know how many, and we have not yet heard directly. There has not yet been a news conference, but we anticipate LAX authorities will be briefing us fairly soon on what exactly has happened. Tori, thanks very much. Good luck to you. I hope you make it to your destination. Mike Brooks is still with us. I guess they don't want to brief reporters and have a formal news conference until they're sure they know precisely what happened. Is that right, Mike?
You're probably right on target with that, Wolf. But LAX, we know how much social media plays a role when incidents like this happen. They just tweeted out 5 minutes ago, suspect is now in custody, multiple victims, press conference at 11:30 a.m. at Sepulveda Boulevard, Century Boulevard, with airport police and LAPD chiefs. So it looks like we will be hearing something very, very shortly from the airport police and from LAPD on what happened here. At 9:30 that started 9:30 local time this morning, Wolf.
Yeah, the incident is now, hopefully it's over, but they're not yet ready to make any formal announcements, and as we see, there is still a hold at the airport. Officials at LAX, though, will hold a news conference, we're told, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, about a half an hour or so from now. Of course, CNN will have live coverage. A dramatic development at LAX, so let's hope this incident has been resolved, but we'll get all the details and update you as information comes in. I'll have much more coming up later in the Situation Room, 5 p.m. Eastern. Brooke Baldwin continues our coverage right now on CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Here we go. Breaking news. I'm Brooke Baldwin, and you are watching all of this unfolding here as we are hearing from eyewitnesses. This is the most terrifying ordeal of their lives. Let me explain to you what we know right now as far as what's been happening at Los Angeles International Airport for the better part of the last hour and a half. Really panic and bloodshed. A shooting at LAX. A couple of items I need to pass along to you. First and foremost, there has been a ground stop that is now in place according to the FAA. This all happened right around Terminal 3. Gunshots rang out early this morning, right around 9:30 local time. We are hearing reports, this is from sources from one of our correspondents, Deborah Farrick, that a gunman with a high-powered rifle entered Terminal 3 and opened fire, shooting a TSA security agent. It is unclear, this is one of many things we do not know at this hour, whether or not that gunman actually breached security. According to her sources, it does not appear that that individual did that. But also according to Deb, the gunman is believed to have been shot and is now in police custody. We are hearing right now, as this is still underway here, as you can see, a tremendous law enforcement and first response presence at LAX. We are hearing from a number of eyewitnesses here, and we're looking, as you can see, a couple of different boxes on your screen right now, aerial pictures. Right side of your screen, a bunch of planes that are just sitting there right around Terminal 3. And on the left-hand side of your screen, this is the passenger pickup and drop-off area, which has become sort of this makeshift triage area as well. And in the last hour or so, we have seen people, this has been dubbed a multi-patient incident, so multiple people injured. We are working to get an update on those injuries, as we mentioned, one of whom is a TSA agent. Sarah Richardson is on the phone with me. She is at LAX. Sarah, you with me?
Yes.
Let me just ask you, first of all, how are you? Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Tell me where you... I hear your voice. Let me just begin. Let's start at the beginning. And if you can, just tell me, I understand you weren't quite through airport security when you heard shots. Is that right?
We were about to go through the security out.
Sarah, are you okay?
Yeah.
I appreciate you calling in. We're just trying to get people information, and I am so sorry. I cannot imagine how you must feel, how all these people must feel, many of them with kids diving under seats, calling their loved ones. If you can hear me, just tell me what you saw.
We heard a lot of loud gunshots, and my colleague pulled me to the ground. We hit the ground and tried to scoot behind something. Everyone was just scrambling along the ground. At which point someone from security told us to sprint and make a run for it. So we all sprinted. All our stuff is back there. And I got pulled into a hallway. My friend fell and didn't get pulled into the hallway with me. I started screaming her name. And we got pulled into a room that they pulled a copy machine in front of the door, and it was under a desk. At which point we weren't allowed to leave the room, but you could hear a lot of shouting and more gunshots outside the room.
Are all of your friends...
At which point someone told us to go ahead and evacuate, and they brought us into a terminal, but then they were telling us to run different directions, and people ran into a bathroom to hide. And then they pulled us out to the sidewalk and said we were going to get bussed out, but then they pulled us back into the international terminal, and now we're being told we're not allowed to leave.
So at the moment, you are sitting somewhere, not quite sure what your next step is. Are all of your friends okay? Let me ask you that.
My friend's okay. She's in another terminal. She said that there's a bomb squad there. We're not really sure when we're going to get out of here.
Did you see the gunman?
I didn't see him. Some of the people in the group that I got locked in the room with saw him.
And what did they tell you about him?
They said he basically came out of nowhere, but it was pretty jarring that someone just randomly pulled a gun right in the middle of nowhere.
Did they describe the gun?
The sound of it was so loud that the first time someone thought a bomb had gone off.
And did they tell you, were they in the security line? Had this, according to our reporting, this individual had not quite gone through airport security. Does that corroborate with what your friends or these other eyewitnesses had seen?
Yeah, the people that saw him said it was where they check your ID before you go through security. Everywhere. Crying, screaming.
And once you run into this room and someone grabs a copy machine and shoves it up against the door, what's everyone saying around you?
Everyone said to turn cell phone ringers off. People were holding each other's hands. They didn't want to open the door when the security manager came because we didn't know who it was.
And they were turning these cell phone ringers off because the fear was this person was roaming around the airport and you didn't want to make a sound. Is that right?
Yeah.
Have you called your loved ones to tell them you're okay?
Yeah.
Where are your bags?
In it's security. I've lost my wallet. I don't know how I'm going to get out of here.
What are they telling you other than to stay put?
They're just telling us we can't leave. We don't know when we're going to be able to get out of here.
Sarah Richardson, thank you so much for calling in. Heart goes out to you and every single person to have suffered through something so horrendous. Sarah Richardson, thank you so much. Tim Daly is now on the phone with me. He also was at LAX. He is being evacuated from the airport right now. Tim, are you with me? Yes, I can just barely. So are you, I just talked to someone who's stuck at the airport right now. Are you able to get out? Tell me where you are. Tim, it's Brooke Baldwin at CNN. I'm having a tough time hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well, but
now I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Yeah,
go ahead and tell me where you are.
I'm in a tunnel on the way to baggage claim with about 300 or 400 people up against a wall clearing a big passageway. There's probably 30 or so LAPD and SWAT people on the other side of the wall. We're being held here. We were just told they were going to question people to see if there are any witnesses and maybe sort of identify everybody and make sure everyone is who they say they are.
Are they allowing people to leave the airport, or are they keeping all of you inside?
Well, I don't know what's going on outside, but right now we are in this tunnel and they're not letting us out.
Tim, where were you? Did you hear the shots yourself?
Yes, I was in the first class lounge at Virgin America, and I was actually in a very bad place. I was leaning against the wall that right outside where the shots were fired. I only found that out after we were evacuated, and we were standing probably 20 feet from a high-powered rifle, an AR-15 looking rifle on the ground with 3 clips nearby, and a pair of black shoes and some people's shopping bags and other people's carry-on luggage strewn about. But a policeman was taking pictures of that rifle, so I can only assume that that was what was used by the shooter. And as we were evacuated, we were told to be careful not to step in any blood or glass, because that would be evidence. We were evacuated in a different direction, so I didn't see any of that. And now we are in a tunnel, as I said, on the way to baggage claim.
I got it. Let me take me back to this high-powered rifle that you're describing that you saw about 20 feet from you. How close was this rifle? Because we're all sort of trying to put the pieces together here. Was it near the security checkpoint metal detector area?
No, not at all. It was right in the middle of the gates. It was outside of gate 35 and 36 in Terminal 3. So it was where people sit. I had just been there. I'd been in the lounge. My flight to Philadelphia was delayed, so I went down to buy a magazine. I went back up into the lounge a couple minutes before the gunfire started. So it was right in the middle of where everyone waits to get on their planes.
After you heard the gunshots, can you just describe for me, I mean, I'm hearing things like most terrifying experience in my life, mayhem. At that moment, I can't imagine just sheer panic. Were people running?
No, I mean, people were obviously confused and nervous in the lounge, and what happened about, less than a minute after the shot occurred were some LAPD burst into the lounge, and that was terrifying. Nobody knew who it was. Had weapons drawn and were sort of herding everybody together to make sure that there was no bad guys, I guess, in the lounge. But, having a gun pointed at you at any time is scary. That being said, I think the LAPD has done an outstanding job of trying to keep people calm and organize everybody. Yeah. But that was pretty frightening when they burst in. And then we were sort of locked in there for probably almost an hour. And we were brought down, as I said, about 20 or 30 feet away from where the rifle was on the ground in the middle of the waiting area. And now we remain in this tunnel.
you are in a tunnel, you don't know what's next. Sometimes, to use your phrase, the bad guys, sometimes there's more than one. Do you get the sense from, the orderly LA Police Department and the folks inside, airport police, security, etc., that at least it's contained, that the incident appears to be over?
Absolutely. I mean, they seem very calm. Again, I have no idea what's going on outside, but inside the terminal, people are very calm and confident that it's over.
Tim, thank you so much for calling into us here at CNN as we're trying to understand exactly what in the world has been happening there. Incredibly frightening for all these people, these eyewitnesses, the people who have seen and heard the gunshots. Deborah Farrick with Stellar Sources, she joins me now with more as far as what, Deb, you heard happened. Take me back specifically to the gunman who, according to you and your sources, didn't quite breach the security checkpoint, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's what happened. The gunman walked up to the security checkpoint. He pulled out a concealed assault rifle. He opened fire. He hit one TSA agent, and then as he walked through that checkpoint, just before even getting to the other side, an officer opened fire, wounding and injuring the gunman. We're now being told that the gunman was removed and taken to a local hospital. There were other gunshot injuries. We're getting more information on that as well. About a dozen shots were fired between the gunman and the responding officer. A lot of people were injured during the stampede that occurred immediately after. I'm told also that police are now searching the parking lot looking for the gunman's vehicle. Clearly, they want to make sure that there are no either other weapons or explosive devices in that vehicle. Also, Brooke, one of the reasons that people are sort of sheltering in place and why everybody is being kept where they are, and that is because that's because they are actually, when they began to run during the panic, during the pandemonium, areas that are normally secure essentially became insecure. So now everybody's going to have to be screened again. Everybody's going to have to be checked. That not only includes the people in the terminal, but it also includes people who were working there at the airport as well. There was a huge presence when this shooting took place, about 100 witnesses. All of them, we are now told, are being questioned. But again, pandemonium when this hit. You've got the FBI responding. You've got LAPD. You've got police officers from LAX as well. Multiple shots done by the assault rifle. Brooke?
Okay, Deborah Farrick, thank you very much. Let me just read what we now have from the TSA. This is a TSA union leader responding to the shooting. I'm just going to quote David Cox Sr. Quote, "We are sickened by reports of today's shooting at the Los Angeles International Airport. Our sincerest thoughts and prayers go out to the passengers and transportation security officers killed or injured in the heinous act. Thank you to all of our brave TSOs who put their lives on the line every day to keep the flying public safe. AFGE, that's the American Federation of Government Employees, is monitoring the situation along with the TSA management." So that is from the TSA specifically. I can also tell you in just about 15 minutes from now, we should be getting a news conference from LA Police, Airport Police as well. So that happening in 15 minutes to get some official word and some facts from the...
We're breaking away from CNN USA's coverage. I'm Jonathan Mann at CNN Center, but we will continue to watch what we have been watching, unexplained bloodshed at a very busy American airport a short time ago. A suspect, we're told, has been shot and is in police custody after a shooting that apparently turned into something of a gunfight at a checkpoint at Los Angeles International Airport. There are said to be multiple victims, and witnesses say it was a scene of mayhem. We are waiting, though, to find out more and expect to at a news conference my colleague Brooke Baldwin just mentioned in the minutes ahead. We'll be bringing it to you live. What we do know is that the incident happened at Terminal 3, where the suspect shot an agent of the Transportation Safety Administration, those uniformed officers you may have seen at U.S. airports who examine your luggage and do safety checks. Well, many travelers making their way through L.A. airport were moved for their safety, but they are also still being confined there. The public outside is being held from entering. Arriving flights are still landing, but outgoing flight operations have stopped. We'll return to Los Angeles as we learn more, but we are also looking to some of the other news that's going on around the world. We know at least 4 people
was there. So all of that right now under investigation. You heard Mike Brooks earlier describing that sort of on-site triage center there. They do that just in the expectation that there might be numerous casualties, but you also see that there are a number of ambulances that are on scene that are still there. So whether this was somebody going after one person, all of that right now under investigation. They believe right now there's one shooter, but clearly they're going through all the terminals to see whether in fact there might be anybody else who was involved in this shooting. And well, Terminal 3, which is where it took place, is connected to other terminals. Terminal 2 by sort of a breezeway, a jetway. So this is a rather large scene right now that they're looking at. Wolf?
And clearly this is still an ongoing situation. It looks, hopefully it's over with, but we have, certainly there's been no formal announcements or any announcement by local authorities that it may be resolved. Let's hope it is resolved, but we do know that LA Fire Department is saying there's multiple injuries, multiple patients that were injured in this incident in Terminal 3 at LAX. Tom Fuentes is still with us. Mike Brooks is with us. Deborah Farrick. Our own Casey Wyan is on the way. We've got our affiliates monitoring what's going on. Still an ongoing situation as we speak right now. LAX has been shut down. It's clearly closed. No flights are taking off or landing right now. The FAA has issued that announcement a little while ago, and that is going to cause some major flight disruptions coming out of Los Angeles. Clearly, Mike Brooks, as you watch what's going on, does it look like these folks are calmed down, or we're only getting little snippets from the video? So we only see what's happening outside. Really, we don't know what's going on inside Terminal 3.
No, we don't, and you don't see a lot of immediacy like Tom was saying, but you do see the law enforcement command post set up there earlier on in the situation. I saw some FBI agents arriving, but there is an FBI office. There's agents assigned to LAX that are there and have an office there at the airport. But you do still see the LA Fire with their triage area set up, with a number of medic units lined up there. We don't know if that's possibly out of an abundance of caution. We don't know if they have this person contained in custody. We don't know any of this right now, Wolf, but one of the other things they're also doing, they're going over all the video surveillance to see, okay, if this was a single gunman, if it was someone who may have had some assistance, where they went. They're looking at all the video surveillance because you have hundreds of cameras inside of that airport that they're able to bring up and take a look at the movements of this shooter as he possibly parked at the airport, as he entered the airport, and possibly approached that TSA checkpoint.
And if it occurred, Tom Fuentes, inside the secure area, inside the metal detectors that the TSA obviously conduct at all airports in the United States, if someone had a weapon inside that area, that raises a lot of concerns, Tom.
Well, the concern there is, and possibly here, the shooting occurred at the checkpoint, not past the checkpoint, meaning there was no breach of a checkpoint with a person with a rifle and then turning around and opening fire. So if they're in the trying to dial down the speed of evacuation to avoid further injury to people just tripping over each other or getting run over by a bus or rescue vehicle like we've had at other incidents, so that could be a circumstance. But for the public announcement, they just want to be absolutely certain that if they had a lone gunman, that lone gunman has either been killed or apprehended and neutralized one way or the other, and that to their knowledge there's no additional threats at large in that airport. And again, we've seen this in other incidents. The person in the Navy Yard was alone and on the ground, dead for a pretty long time before the police finally came out and said that situation was over and handled and the public would be safe. And of course they did have to track down whether ununiformed officers were actually suspects. But in this case, it just doesn't seem anymore like there's a mad dash to get away from that terminal.
Hold on a minute, Tom. Deborah Farrick is joining us. She's getting some information on what's happening at LAX. What are you learning, Deb?
Well, we can tell you some preliminary information. We're being told by an intel source, formerly the LAPD, that the shooter apparently approached a checkpoint there at Terminal 3 in LAX and then opened fire on a TSA agent. Now, we're told also that there were multiple shots that were fired. The weapon they believe may be a rifle, but again, this was somebody who walked up to the checkpoint, opened fire on a TSA agent. Not clear right now, according to the people that we're talking about, as to whether they actually breached that security checkpoint or whether the target...
Now, Alex, we'll stay in touch with you. Alex Newman was an eyewitness, saw what was going on at one of the food courts, and he saw someone running and obviously mayhem was the word he used. Tom Fuentes is still with us, the former assistant FBI director or CNN law enforcement analyst. Are you surprised, Tom, that this is still going on as intensively as it is, approaching 1 hour into this incident?
Well, if I would question whether or not this may have already ended, and the reason I say that is watching the video feed of the area around the terminal, they're bringing passengers out, putting them on buses, and they seem to be fairly nonchalant about it. If they thought they still had someone running around that airport that has a high-power rifle or explosives, there would be much greater urgency on the part of the law enforcement authorities to get those people out of there, make them run to that bus, get those buses out of there. And it's kind of, you know, you have people looking like they're going on a vacation excursion here, boarding the LAX buses. So there's a good possibility that this is already over on the inside of that terminal, and they've just not said so publicly. The police may be aware of it, but the public and the media may not be aware of it yet. I'm just, again, it's my opinion, looking at what appears to me to be a lack of urgency evacuating passengers from the vicinity of that terminal.
Well, why wouldn't, just a technical question, why wouldn't police, if it's all over, why wouldn't they immediately do a quick announcement, it's all over, and we're going to clean up this situation right now? Why wouldn't they immediately tell us if it's all over?
Well, they may be your area. People getting out of cars, coming to catch flights, you know, they can get out of those vehicles with a bazooka. They're not going through any security yet until they get to the gate checkpoint. Now, as Mike mentioned, and it's a tremendous point, the cameras that they'll be going through now will cover everything from the vehicles unloading people at the front doors, the sidewalks, the entries, the gate areas, the hallway areas leading to the security checkpoints. They'll be going through that now in detail, trying to see if there's more than one person that walked in there. When do they see the weapon? Are there other multiple people that maybe were with that person and somehow has disappeared into the airport? All of that is under review and analysis right now and has been since the initial incident, wanting to know, is this person alone or was this person alone when the attempt was made?
And they'll be reviewing all those videotapes very, very closely. I assume they've probably already started. Casey Wine, I take it you're now at LAX, is that right?
That's right, Wolf. I'm just outside the gates of LAX. For those who are familiar with the airport, I am at the intersection of Tacoma Boulevard and where Lincoln turns into the airport, just north of the airport. You can hear the sirens behind me. What that is, believe it or not, is the pump squad at an LAPD vehicle actually stuck in traffic. They're trying to get to the airport, but because the traffic is so bad, they can't get past all of the cars that look like they're backed up for maybe a mile around the airport. An LAPD officer has now gotten out of his vehicle, instructing other vehicles to move out of the way so they can